Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. You know, I'd love to come here this week and say that I was on the ball completely for once. We got the Future album bomb, as I predicted, but most of it was below the top 40 and thus can be mostly deflected. And even my long shot prediction surrounding what would take the number one got there against all odds. So yeah, I was prepared to be pretty pleased one way or the other. And then I realized I completely forgot about Polo G, which is strange given that I like the songs I've heard from the guy, but he got an album bomb of his own, also mostly below the top 40. In other words, this week had a kind of odd feel to it, and might actually wind up easier to cover than I expected. But of course, we must first discuss the drama of the top 10, where, as I've been saying the past couple of weeks, Savage by Megan Thee Stallion featuring Beyonce is at number 1. Again, should not be a surprise given the strength across the board, but just in case they threw on a sales discount this week to seal that number 1. Well timed, especially as the airplay hasn't quite hit the peak yet. And unlike many of the past weeks, this may be sustainable, especially if her streaming remains robust and the airplay is on the upswing considerably. Hell, it moved right past Say So by Doja Cat with Nicki Minaj at number 2, which might be better on the radio but lags everywhere else. It is worth mentioning, though, that given radio's downturn in the pandemic, Nielsen audience statistics were adjusted downwards, which naturally gives streaming and sales a bit of a boost without Billboard having to change their formula. Probably why Blinding Lights, despite being at the top on the radio and gaining, only hit number 3, especially as streaming took a bit of a dip this week. Probably also a boon for Rockstar by DaBaby and Roddy Ricch, up big to number 4, because it rules streaming and it looks to be making a very solid radio run, even if the sales are not really worth caring about. Then we had Drake picking up a spot for Tootsie Slide at number 5, not altogether surprising given how consistent it is in streaming and radio, but then we saw the first boon of the album bomb, Life is Good by Future featuring Drake rebounded to number 6. A big surge on streaming, that will do it for you. Then we had The Box by Roddy Ricch holding steady at number 7. Yes, it's plummeting on the radio, but YouTube and streaming is still keeping it afloat. And Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa actually picking up a spot to number 8. Most of what it still has is radio, but there is still a lot of it. Unfortunately, it also allowed Intentions by Justin Bieber featuring Quavo to sneak back into the top 10 at number 9. I've said this before that it's a little bit more consistent than it should be across the board, and it even had a radio run this week, but bringing up the rear we had Circles by Post Malone at number 10, because even if it looks like his radio is finally on the way out, it still has a lot and good streaming. Go figure. But on a similar note, given that we had a double album bomb and radio readjusted downwards, the double album bomb led to a hefty list of losers and dropouts. And while in the latter category, Hard on Ice by Rod Wave and You Should Be Sad by Halsey clinched their year-end list spots, a whole lot of songs got swept out, like I Love Me by Demi Lovato, but in particular country and country-adjacent songs like More Hearts Than Mine by Ingrid Andress, or Catch by Brett Young, or Homemade by Jake Owen, or even Slow Dance in a Parking Lot by Jordan Davis. And there was a lot of country that took hits among our losers here too. Be a Light by Thomas Rhett and Co. is at 100, Drinking Alone by Carrie Underwood at 99, I Love My Country by Florida Georgia Line at 89, In Between by Scotty McCreery at 83, and even Here and Now by Kenny Chesney down at 77. I honestly thought that might have more momentum. But our list of losers goes beyond that. Off the debuts, we had Stuck With You by Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber, predictably falling to 13, as well as Go Crazy by Chris Brown and Young Thug at 94, and Three-Headed Goat by Lil Durk, Lil Baby, and Polo G at 96. And then from the gains, cut short, we had Level of Concern by 21 Pilots down to 66, If the World Was Ending by JP Saxe and Julia Michaels tumble down to 73, interesting, I might put that on the radio losses. Ride It by DJ Regard at 74, Pussy Fairy by Jhené Aiko at 78, Out West by Jack Boys and Young Thug at 80, and Turks by Nav, Gunna, and Travis Scott at 91. And as for our continued losers, both were from Drake, with Chicago Freestyle at 56 and Pain 1993 with Playboi Carti at 86. And as for what's left, well, we got the songs that have already clinched their spot for the year-end list making their exit, like Godzilla by Eminem and the late Juice WRLD at 90, as well as Ritmo by the Black Eyed Peas and J Balvin at 41, and Hot Girl Bummer by Black Bear at 46, but outside of that, Be Kind by Marshmello and Halsey sliding to 43, Righteous by Juice WRLD at 63, and We Pay by Lil Baby and 42 Dugg at 70. Now again, in the week of a double album bomb, you wouldn't expect much in terms of re-entries and gains, and indeed in the former category, Go Stupid by Polo G featuring Stunna for Vegas and NLE Choppa is only back at 67 because of that album bomb, and Watermelon Sugar by Harry Styles at 64 thanks to the video. But both of our gains are still in the upswing, and that concerns me. Party Girl by Stay Solid Rocky at 38 thanks to TikTok, and One Margarita by Luke Bryan at 48. Again, we should stop both these sooner rather than later. But on the topic of two album bombs, they actually both qualify for my rules with over 8 songs debuting. So outside of my best and worst, well, from Future, Harlem Shake, No Not That One, featuring Young Thug at 84, One of My at 82, Touch the Sky at 81, Posted with Demons at 79, Too Comfortable at 75, Hard to Choose One at 68, All Bad with Lil Uzi Vert at 54, and Trapped in the Sun at 53. And from Polo G, we had I Know at 95, 33 at 93, Beautiful Pain, Losing My Mind at 92, Don't Believe the Hype at 88, 21 at 62, and Be Something with Lil Baby at 57. And what's left for our new arrivals? Number 71, HiTek Tech by Future.
Yeah, yeah. Big ass tick, yeah, yeah. Big ass bitch, yeah, yeah. Big little shit, yeah, yeah. I'm getting my money, yeah, yeah. I'm getting this rich, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna get this out of the way. Future has both the worst songs here, and it's not particularly close. The off-key, off-rhythm clatter of keys loop behind some of the worst-sounding hi-hats and snares on the album, and Future's voice sounding as frail and underpowered against the sloppily mixed bass groove as he does. Even though the content's gonna be completely empty, none of it's flattering to him, even as he once again tries to say he's not swigging purple drank anymore, until the second verse, where it's the red in his cup that's gonna kill him this time, and his girl's now on lean. Beyond that, it's a Future song with luxury porn and guns, and not a good one. But you know what might be worse? Number 69, Ridin' Strikers by Future.
Ride strikers to the hood. Ride them strikers to your hood. Ride strikers, yeah. Ride them strikers to your hood, yeah.
Yeah, this was the song I liked the least on High Off Life, and it's for a lot of the same reasons as last time. The tumble of acoustics sound even jankier against the thin, cheap trap beat. In addition to sounding generally a lot weaker in his delivery, Future's verse is dropping rhymes and can't even be bothered to feel coherent, which might be reflective of all the drugs he's apparently on while he's riding, but it doesn't fit any sort of mood to match the bank robbery that sample includes. And that's the weird thing. If you are so damn rich, why are you now trying to rob a bank with barely any coherent details around it? And why are you then suddenly going to switch up the groove with what could be a chopped and screwed outro that somehow sounds even more leaden and flat before the shrill commas-esque air horns slip in to try and add a sense of menace that just isn't there? I mean, as a whole, it's utterly incoherent in mood and execution, and Future trying to add gravitas in his final few lines doesn't remotely feel earned or supported. So in other words, it really sucks. Next, number 61, Martin and Gina by Polo G.
In the middle of the club, I know what you chasing. You can only get this feeling from a thug. You can only get this feeling from a thug.
So of the Polo G debuts this week, this is probably the one I like the most. Mostly because even if it's a hookup jam where Polo G is gonna buy this girl a bunch of expensive brands, he doesn't actually list them like off an advertisement, and he spends more time talking about the relationship, where tension comes from his own insecurities and what seems like some genuine affection for her, especially when he can't quite quantify it, but still feels it. More importantly, it takes the more interesting spiraling percussion rumble off the guitar, and Polo G's melodic flow is really on point, especially in the change-up going into that hook, which is dark enough to still feel kind of imposing, but with a bright enough melody to play to a broader, maybe even a crossover audience. Hell, if anything, if you pulled together a remix of maybe, I don't know, Kalani, or any other girl in trap or R&B who could convincingly play off the groove without sounding super hard, hell, I think he could have a smash on his hands. The hook is that good. So, yeah, I like it. It's a great song, a lot of promise here, and while I was a little bit less wild about the other Polo G songs I checked out here, this one, It's worth it. Number 40, Daisies by Katy Perry.
They tell me that I'm crazy, but I'll never let them change me. So they cover me in daisies, daisies, daisies.
So this is gonna sound bad, but Katy Perry's career seems like it's been running on fumes for a while. If it seems like in the past couple of years, even if the music's been getting better. That's not saying she's found a unique sound or identity for herself like others have, but she's on a track to making some better singles in the hope of that an album might someday show up. And Daisies... Am I the only one kind of reminded of a better-than-average Pink album cut with such slightly busier percussion? The high cushion of reverb splashing into the acoustic guitar, the attempts to build into the sort of swell that Perry has never really tried to push vocally, where you can hear her kind of strain at the end of the hook. It's her attempt to make a big-sounding song where she's not already on top of it and riding it like Roar, and honestly, it's not a bad fit. And again, I kind of like it. Sure, she doesn't have the intensity or charisma of Pink, and the lyrics are utterly boilerplate empowerment cliches. Again, a lot like Pink these days. But it shows effort, and maybe because I've always had a soft spot for some of those faster-paced acoustics on a hook, I like this a fair bit. Check it out. Good stuff. Number 34, Trillionaire by Future featuring YoungBoy Never Broke Again.
I woke off, feel like I can be a trillionaire. Yeah, I'ma be the one that they talk about.
So in my brief review on High Off Life, I cited this as one of the better cuts, but I struggle to pin down why. Like most of the album, it's bare bones in the melody and the softer trap percussion, but the back and forth juxtaposition between Future and YoungBoy is pretty good, as both are on different tiers but aspiring to be even bigger. And even if there are some pretty obvious flubbed rhymes which don't help the flow, it's less about the flex now and more about the come up in the past. Hell, Future even manages a line about his sister sickle cell anemia, which with all the money he has, he can't buy a cure. Which for a song called Trillionaire, kind of an interesting conceit. I don't know, I'm not gonna call this great or anything, but for Future, yeah, you know what? It's alright. Number 33, X by the Jonas Brothers featuring Karol G. Hey, you all know that the Jonas Brothers are putting out a new album? Better question, has anything in their comeback really inspired you to care? And this is coming from somebody who was actually mostly behind What a Man Gotta Do, but that song ran out of momentum really fast, so now they're teaming up with Karol G, and of course they're going for the flagrant Latin crossover with a Bailando reference in the first verse, one of the most watery guitar pickups I've heard in a while, and a big flashy horn section. Honestly, with Joe Jonas going for his questionable falsetto on the more groovy hook, it reminds me a lot more of all those DNCE songs I wasn't all that fond of in anything in their comeback thus far, except with a more developed and generally likable groove. Again, for as cynical as I am around the Jonas Brothers, this might not be bad at all. As a hookup jam, it's a bit basic, but Karol G gives it her all, and the percussion and bass groove around the hook, as I said, is actually pretty damn good. Looks like they actually put that shellback co-writing and producing credit to good use for once. Hell, if this is well promoted, I could even see this being a decent summer hit. It's got that hook. Although I'm not sure I'm ready to endorse just how cynical this feels. That's all I'm saying. It's good, but let's not call it great. Number 32, Solitaires by Future featuring Travis Scott.
Says you wanna party, wanna let it loose. Busting out my bag, I'm sharing all the loot.
Alright, look, I know it's bad form for me to come in here and say, and look, I just don't care. Future has the line, coronavirus diamonds, you can catch the flu. There's nothing more I can really add to that sort of song that'd be instantly dated, but this was Future's biggest debut, despite having some of the worst mixing on the album, which is a pretty scathing indictment for both Wheezy and Mike Dean, and the content being bare bones brand name flexing and drugs. I mean, I'm still waiting for the Travis Scott stimulus package to provide any sort of distinctive content or energy, but he sounds about as checked out as Future does, so I'm left wondering, outside of the coronavirus line, you couldn't repackage these verses or this hook onto anything else. I mean, there's worse on the album that we've already talked about, but man, for as much hype as both these guys have, this should be way better than it is, because it's mediocre. And finally, number 30, Flex by Polo G featuring the late Juice WRLD.
Can't stand the baller, baby, I do what I want to. I be with some steppers, I don't care about what you gon' do.
I'm not surprised this is the biggest song of the week. Polo G and Juice WRLD were apparently close friends, they worked together often, and when you throw on a Hit Boy beat with the lead-in bass and the washed-out guitar loop, natural fit for both artists. Shame they don't really do anything with it beyond a really basic flex song. Frankly, I'm surprised Juice WRLD didn't take the hook to give this song a little bit more melodic presence, instead trying to be more imposing on a verse where he quite literally said, "See you later, alligator." I mean, thankfully Polo G is better. The brand name flexing opposite the gunplay, it's not his best look by any means, but he can at least sell some of the darker intensity. It's generally fine. I guess my larger point is that it kind of stings the more interesting storytelling and relationship drama that made Polo G so compelling on his album isn't attracting as much of an audience as something this basic and done before. Kind of a letdown because this is just okay. At best. But it's not all bad news for Polo G. Still getting the best of the week with Martin and Gina. And Katy Perry coming up with Daisies as the honorable mention. I'm about as surprised as anybody. Now, to nobody's surprise, Future is getting both the worst of the week with Ridin Strikers and Dishonourable mention to HiTek. And since knowing our luck, a Gunna album bomb is incoming, we might want to brace ourselves for more on that front. Fun stuff. But hey, until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.